are here with Dr. Chiezda. She's here with us today. She's a newly graduated doctor from the Ostrava University, and she's currently residing in the UK right now. Throughout medical school, Dr. Chiezda managed to balance an impressive range of responsibilities, including writing a book, 2 books, completing internships, conducting audits, and getting A's on her final exams. So today she's here to share her experiences and her expertise with her. She's gonna teach us how to manage our how to basically enhance our CV throughout medical school. So everyone, welcome Chiezda Mudambi.
Hi everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us, Chiezda.
No worries. Thank you for inviting me. I'm just gonna share my screen now. Please confirm with me that you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, good. So today I'm going to be talking about CV enhancement during medical school. So who am I? I am recently graduated as of June 2024, F2 equivalent. I'm currently working in community medicine in England, and during medical school, I started a business that helped hundreds of students get into medical school, both in the UK and in Eastern Europe. I received research scholarships. I published an audit with the European Orthopedic Pediatric Society and also PubMed. I did 2 clinical electives. I published 2 books now, presented locally, nationally, and internationally, and I received more than 5 lists of recommendations. So essentially, I'm going to be explaining how to be strategic when you're in medical school, to do other things that will really contribute to your CV and give you points later on so that you can stress less later on when you're working. You already know you have these things in the bag. So what do they look for a foundation year doctor? So for instance, if you're applying for F2 standalone or trust grade jobs for F1 and F2. They look for research publications, audits, presentation at conferences, teamwork, leadership experience, NHS experience, extra courses such as the IELTS or OET, which is an English language course if you're graduating from a non-English speaking university, and also ALS, which is advanced life support, and also references and letters of recommendation. So research, why it matters. Research experience demonstrates your ability to contribute evidence-based medicine and enhance your analytic and critical thinking skills. You can get started by seeking out opportunities from your consultants. You can ask to assist in data collection or analysis. You can start your own research and try and get them published and also presented. You get points later on when you're applying for jobs for presenting locally, presenting nationally and internationally. So even if you're using the same research project, try and present in all 3 if you can. Submit them to different societies. And PubMed is basically like the UK currency for research, so that's the best place to publish. My personal example, so this is from one of the trust grade applications that I did that got accepted. They ask for your research experience. So you tick whether you have had any in the last 5 years, yes or no. They ask the title, the date, the aim of the research, and conclusions and actions. And they ask you to summarize your main learning points from an effective audit or quality improvement project you have taken. So it's really important in the NHS in the UK, they really like you to reflect what you've learned, what you could do better, etc. And do you hold any research qualifications? Then the next one is an audit. An audit is an assessment of a certain aspect in healthcare in attaining and recognizing standards. This lets us care providers and patients know where the service is doing well and where we could have improvement. The aim is to achieve quality improvement and improve outcomes for patients. So examples of audits that you can do during medical school is go to your local hospital and ask if you can check their prescribing habits to see if people are being prescribed accurately. You could assess patients with heart failure see if they're on the correct combination of beta blockers and ACE inhibitors. If you're in psych, maybe you could see cardiac comorbidities in patients on psychotropic medication. And you can also check if patients are at risk of developing blood clots, are they receiving the appropriate treatment to prevent that from happening. There's a bunch of things you could do for your audit. I did an audit on assessing pain management in pediatric orthopedic surgeries, so post-op pain management. And actually, you'll see that a lot of people aren't being prescribed the maximum dose, and that will affect their healing, how long they stay in hospital, things like this. So an example of what they ask for on the application, it's under the section of management of change. They say, do you want to highlight any that you have done, any audits you've done in the past 5 years? You say the description, the date, the aim and the measurement, and the conclusions and actions. They want to see what you've identified and also what changes and actions you've done to implement and make sure that the service is being improved later on. And they ask you which has been the most valuable and why, and describe the impact of a change initiated by you on wider members of your team. So you'll find with trust grade applications that they basically all ask the exact same thing. You're just applying for different hospitals and different areas, so you may have to tweak it slightly based on what speciality you choose, but these are basically the questions you'll find on all trust grade applications. So they also ask for teaching experience. They say, do you have any formal, qualifications, or do you have any teaching experience at all? You can include examples like teaching anatomy to first years or physiology to third years. It's ideal if you're teaching to include feedback sheets after each session, because with the NHS, they want you to not only have done something, but to prove that you've done it and also to prove impact, especially when you're applying to specialty training. You need to prove impact of the things that you've done. And you can also include teaching sessions online for UIMS, for example, or if you do tutoring as a part-time job, that also counts towards teaching experience. It doesn't need to be clinical. Teamwork, they ask a lot about teamwork in the application. Why it matters is because healthcare is a multidisciplinary field. So you'll be working in teams within your field as doctors, but also with nurses, with pharmacists, with healthcare assistants, and you need to make sure that you can work effectively as a team. So you can do team-based projects, and you can also do, you can give examples of, for instance, when you're at uni, where you may have done a project together, or maybe even in your job, etc. Mention how your involvement improved the patient outcomes or care efficiency. The quote that's used in the NHS application is describe situations where you have been involved in working in a team, not necessarily limited to professional activities. So this can be anywhere. They also ask for leadership. So they will ask you to give examples of when you have been in a leadership role and exhibited leadership skills. The question is, please highlight experience you may have which is relevant to this post, not necessarily limited to professional activities. So this is just a screenshot of different questions in your application. You can include, for instance, working in UIMS, or you could start a society or organization, or you could lead a team project in medical school. You could start your own project. So essentially, they want you to be able to work as a team and also as a leader, and know the difference between the two. Again, it doesn't have to be clinical, but make sure you reflect on what you're saying. Why is leadership critical? As a doctor, you'll be leading patient care teams, managing junior staff, and eventually taking a greater responsibility in managing clinics or departments. So how you can develop it: take a leadership role, be proactive in student societies, elective programs, ward management, clinical leadership opportunities, look for them. Practical examples include student representatives of your uni, of your class. NHS experience. So this is really, really important for foreign graduates. If you're applying to the NHS from Europe, recruiters will look for your understanding of the NHS, how it operates, and your ability to adapt to its unique challenges and systems. So you can do this by applying for electives and placements in the UK. It can be in any field, but it's better if it's in the field that you want to work in, because you'll be applying for that job. And some jobs, for instance, if you're applying for a pediatric job, they will look for pediatric NHS experience. You can do internships and observerships. If you're not sure where you want to apply, I would suggest applying to more generic fields, maybe A&E, maybe internal medicine. It's a requirement for most trust grade jobs to have NHS experience. A lot of them have asked for 6 months or maybe 2 months in the specific field. So if you do your F1 equivalent in the UK, that would be best. I know a lot of people in Czech medical schools, they take their 6th year, which is equivalent to F1, and they do many of their observerships in the UK. That will help you get a job because they will know you, you'll still be fresh in their minds, and you can count that all as NHS experience. If you don't do that, that's also fine, but make sure you make time out to apply for these jobs. I know a lot of foreign graduates that have gotten jobs just from their electives, doing maybe a few months of essentially free work. And then also at the end of it, if they really impress their supervisors, they'll offer them a job. So yeah, it's better to do it in the 6th year because that's when, they will still remember you. You'll be fresh in their heads and they could potentially offer you a job straight away. But anytime during medical school, the more experience you get, the better. A lot of international, sorry, I just realized I'd written that point already. So I'll move on to the next one, which is extra courses. ALS, which stands for Advanced Life Support. The UK love this course. It's very expensive. It's about £700, but most trust grade jobs will require you to have it. And even in F2 standalone, when you make the application, they say that you're required to have it by the time the job commences, not necessarily when you're applying for it. But with trust grade jobs, a lot of them, it's even upon application, they want you to have ALS. And that basically just gives the hospital more confidence that in case of an emergency, in case somebody goes into sudden cardiac arrest or has any of these clinical emergencies, you'll be able to deal with it effectively and efficiently. And also, if you are a foreign graduate, you will be required to take the IELTS or the OET. The IELTS is cheaper than the OET, but the OET is more specific, it's more clinical. So you can be exempt from taking the IELTS if you have ample NHS experience, more than 12 months, or if the test basically proves that you'll be able to adequately communicate with patients. And it's important to note that the GMC requirements for IELTS are slightly different from the F2 standalone requirements. So make sure you do your research. It's in my book, the specific examples and requirements. So any extra courses would be good if it's in a field that you're interested in. For instance, if you're interested in surgery, it will be good to do suturing courses, and you should save the certificates for all of the courses that you do, because again, the NHS do like you to prove everything. Letters of recommendation and references are also really important. They basically show your character, they show your work ethic, they show that you are trusted by the consultant that is giving you this letter of recommendation. And depending on where in the world that you apply, in the UK, references are necessary. Letters of recommendation are an extra added bonus. In countries like America, they actually want you to have many letters of recommendation, depending on what field you are choosing to specialize in. What employers look for in a newly qualified doctor, this is usually more focused on the UK, clinical competence, practical tips. In your CV, make sure you list your clinical rotations in medical school and outside any electives, all the skills you've acquired, etc. Adaptability, communication skills, and commitment to lifelong learning, because that is what medicine is. It is literally lifelong learning. Why is it important to try and get things done during medical school? So for specialty training, they use a point-based system that also assesses the same criteria. For instance, the research, the audits, the publications and presentations, teaching, teamwork, leadership roles, etc. And you get points for each of these. And the more points you get, the more competitive you are. And genuinely speaking, you have more time in medical school. I know it doesn't feel like that because you're always revising and there's always something to do. But once you start working, you'll see that your day is really taken and you won't have as much to do. And also, you're in a foreign country, most of us. We have less distractions. When we come back, maybe we'll want to start getting things sorted for ourselves. So, right now is the time that we have the most time. And once you've done it, like you said, like you saw on the examples, it said within the last 5 years. Some of them for specialty training, they don't even look at the time that you've done it in. So just being able to tick that box and say, yes, I've gotten 2 or 3 researchers, that's out of the way. Now I don't need to focus on that in my foundation training. Yes, I've presented locally, nationally, internationally, tick the box, gone, out of the way. It will save you so much stress later on, and it will let you have a more competitive application. This is a book that I did on relocating to the UK. If any of you are newly graduates or you're going into your 6th year and you want to come to the UK, it has all the information on how to do that effectively and time efficiently as well. Where to find me? You can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Chiezda Mudambi, or you can find me on Instagram as Dr. Chiezda. Is there any questions from anyone? I'll just stop sharing my screen. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. So I think that's it.
Okay.
Oh, it says regarding audits, how expensive should they be? Extensive. They don't necessarily need to be extensive. They can literally be on anything. Like you can decide to do one on prescribed, just literally go to your local hospital, check the prescribing habits of antibiotics, make sure that they're doing it correctly, make sure that they are like following the local guidelines. You'll be surprised how many small mistakes that hospitals make that you can bring to light. My one was literally on pain management. So it was a retrospective audit. I didn't actually need to be in person, but it still counts as an audit. So it doesn't need to be extensive. You just need to be able to, explain it well in the interview and explain how you managed to create a positive change in the system. Yes, peer reviews do help. Sorry. Is there a specific format to have when recording audits? If so, where can we learn on how to do them? So there's no specific format because audits range in topic. They range from hospital to hospital. You can ask your local hospital if you can do an audit with one of the doctors, because what I've seen as well is that for most hospitals, it's a requirement for the doctors to do audits. I know in England, in specialty training, for instance, some of my friends are doing GP practice. Every year they have to do an audit. So you can literally just ask to tag along to one of the audits and already see the structure that they're doing. Or you can essentially, I don't want to say make up your own, but essentially you can, as long as it is effective and you can demonstrate the change and maybe write an abstract on it, try and publish it. That can also count as a publication. It doesn't need to be research. So it can peer review journals, things like that. They can also count as publications. Letter of recommendation should be from a clinician for it to have the desired impact. Ideally from a consultant, but yeah, it should be from a doctor. You can't just get like anyone to write you a letter of recommendation. If you're applying for a clinical job, it should be from a clinician, in my opinion. There's no specific number that are necessary, but I would try and get at least 3. from where can I see screen recordings of this session? I believe it's going to be on YouTube, but you would have to ask UIMS team for that. It says, I graduated with a full license, so I have to start with FY Foundation Year 2. I don't want to do standalone as they place you in rural areas of England, and I'm based in London, Kent. Do you have any advice for another pathway? So, Das, message me privately because I am also based in London/Kent. But you don't need to do F2 standalones to do F2. And you can also still apply for F1 clinical, like trust grade jobs. It doesn't have to be straight to F2. So there are many options. F2 standalone is not the only option for you. Do the letters of recommendation have to be from a doctor whose specialty I'm interested in? They don't have to be, but it would be ideal when you are applying for specialty training. So as graduates, we're still yet to complete F2. So really, the experience can be from anywhere, but when we're applying for specialty training, it wouldn't be very useful for me to submit a pathology letter of recommendation to a job in, ENT or a job in, I don't know, nephrology, because it's not really related. But for a foundation year job, it can be anything really. So you start applying in, I believe, I'll just need to double check, but I believe FT standalone, it's January. You start applying, but you start making the necessary preparations beforehand. This is January while you're in your 6th year. So you would need to have sat your IELTS. You would need to have, tick the boxes there and done the necessary research. After that, you can start applying that's for F2 standalone, and the process usually lasts until maybe about like April-ish, because you have to go through doing the written situational judgment test and also the interviews. But you can also apply for trust grade jobs, and you can apply whenever they start to come out. Some come out super, super early, maybe in March, again, in your 6th year. Up to now, I could still make an application if I want to. There are always, sort of jobs available, but they come in higher frequency, I would say around June-ish time, for the start of the academic year in August. They start their like official F1, official F2 in August. I hope that makes sense. Is there any more questions? Okay, I think that's it.
Right. So if you guys don't have any more questions, I'd just like to thank you, Dr. Chiezda, for joining us this evening. I know your schedule is very busy, so thank you so much for taking, some time of your day, of your night to help us understand a bit more about CV enhancement and giving us like some valuable tips that we're definitely going to use in the future. So if you guys found this lecture helpful, comment on our Instagram post. And thank you so much for everyone that came to this live stream today. Thank you, Chiezda. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chiezda.
Thank you, Leticia. Bye.
Bye-bye.